Today, why I switched from Canon to Sony. Hi, I'm Brian Idox. I'm a wedding photographer in St. Petersburg, Florida, and thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm going to talk about why I switched from Canon to Sony. Now, let me preface this. Way back, I used to shoot with Hasselblad. Then I switched to Nikon and I went 35mm. This is back in the film days. And I went with Nikon mostly because it was the most popular name at the time. We're talking late 80s here. And it just seemed like the camera to have for what I wanted at the time. And I stuck with Nikon for quite some time. Then when digital started becoming a thing, you know, you went back and forth and back and forth. I had some Kodaks and some Nikons. And then a friend of mine had a Canon. And at this point, I think it was the 1D, the original 1D. And I had the Nikon D1. Kind of funny how they did that. And at the time, there was this magenta cast in all the RAW files. And we had to do all this crazy stuff to get them to look the way the Canon files looked, pretty much right out of camera. So I immediately invested into the Canon system. Well, not immediately, it took a little while. I had to sell off a ton of glass, several bodies, and I reinvested in all Canon glass, and I've been Canon ever since. So that tells you how long I've been Canon. I am not a brand specific photographer. Like, I'm not going to say Nikon sucks or Nikon's great or Canon sucks. I'm not going to do that because they all have advantages and disadvantages, and you should shoot what works for you. I want to be very clear on that. Just because I'm advocating the Sony system today doesn't mean that in 3 years Nikon won't be better. And I'd have to consider, is it worth it for me to make a switch at that point? My reasons for switching are many. I stuck with Canon. We used most of their SLRs or DSLRs along the way. We had several different bodies, lots of lenses, and we had the full range, you know, semi-pro stuff all the way through to pretty high-end lenses. And I just always felt it could be a little better. And I watched every production camera they came out with, gave like one feature out of the 10 that everybody wanted to have. And it just felt like they were holding back. And they even didn't take mirrorless seriously until just a couple of years ago. And I waited. I held back and I said, you know, they're going to do it. They have to do something. Sony came out with the A7 III sometime last year, almost a year ago, and it was almost revolutionary. They took one of the best autofocus systems on the market in the A9 and put a slightly less good version of it in this camera, and then they added full frame, and it's mirrorless, and it has eye autofocus and all these other features, and they did it for $2,000. That's outstanding. For $2,000 in the Canon lineup, there's not a whole lot you can get that's anywhere close to this. We had some Canon 6Ds, which I thought were great cameras, great for low light. Not the best autofocus system in the world, but it did the job. And what we found was the image quality blew me away. I was not expecting a change in image quality when we went to the Sony system. I was just expecting it to be easier to use and things like that. But it leads me up to what made me finally make the switch. I really like the idea of the screens where you can see your exposures and things like that, and I thought that was great, but that's mirrorless versus DSLR. Not the same thing. We did actually make the switch from Canon to Sony at the same time as making the switch from DSLR to mirrorless. So the lines get a little bit blurred here and there, but this is really about Canon versus Sony, in my opinion. And I want to make that clear. This is my opinion. This is my experience. Your experience might be completely different, and I'm not telling you that Canon's awful or, you know, that kind of thing. Canon makes wonderful products. They've actually made great cameras for many, many years. That's why I stuck with them for 20 years. But for me, as I sat and waited and I watched Sony come out with camera after camera after camera, sure, they got beat up for not having lenses or this feature missing or that feature missing. I waited because I said, Canon's got to be listening. They got to be making something. They got to be coming up with something awesome. Well, Nikon announced their camera, which you've probably heard about, the Z series, and they're fine. They're a good camera. I've seen some deficiencies on them. Not going to get into it. Basically, I still think the Sony A7 III is the better camera of the two. A little bit while later, Canon came out with their camera. I have to say, I was so disappointed when I read the specs on this that I thought, there's just no way that's really the camera they're going to produce. First, let's talk about the very, very obvious things that are different. The A7 III, 2 card slots. I was never a 2 card slot shooter. I didn't think it was a big deal, but this camera already has it. Why would you produce something after this that doesn't? If this is your competition, at least equal it. I thought they were going to try to surpass it. They basically didn't even get there. The Canon camera, I don't know. I just feel like it was a big miss versus what even Nikon put out, and I thought Nikon was a miss compared to the Sonys. And that really bothered me because it told me that these companies aren't really listening to us. They're not really putting into their product what we want. They're putting into their product what they think we should have. And that's a distinct difference. So to me, I said, I'm going to vote. You may think it's not a democracy, but it most certainly is. These are corporations. These corporations live and die by us buying their products. If they're not listening to us and if they're not putting the features in that we want that are in other products, vote with your dollars, vote with your money, buy things that work for you. We initially tried out the Sony a6500. We actually have another channel where we do videos and stuff, and we wanted that just to try it out, dip our toes in the water, so to speak. And we got a zoom lens. It's actually the camera that's filming just this right here, right now. And immediately I was impressed. I was able to switch over to that camera and use it on a professional level almost overnight. It was so interesting to me how quickly I could change from a digital SLR by Canon to a mirrorless camera by Sony. Yeah, it's not a full frame camera, but you know what? The image quality matched what we were getting from our Canon camera already. That kind of planted the bug. Within a couple of months, we got an A7 III, and yeah, the more research I do, the more I look into these things, the more I experiment, the more I realize we made the right choice. And switching from Canon to Sony was as much a business decision as a personal choice for us. It was a business decision because this is better gear. This is just overall a better ecosystem for us to live in right now. They listen to their people. They have features that we wanted. Things that we wanted in the cameras are here that are missing in the Canon line. They just don't exist, and it doesn't look like they're going to put them in anytime soon. And Canon, to me, kind of let down all of their people by not stepping up and really taking mirrorless seriously. They let everybody down. They didn't produce a better camera. They just kind of said, oh, you want mirrorless? Here's something mirrorless. To me, that's not good enough. In this day and age when word travels instantly and, somebody does something and it's known around the world in minutes, let alone hours or days, you have to be better than the next guy. And that's just the way it is. Canon and Nikon didn't take it seriously enough. And I think it's going to bite them. I think it's going to really hurt them in the long run. I think Sony's going to just get better and better and keep producing these fantastic cameras that people actually want. That sums up pretty much why I switched from Canon to Sony. And we hope to be producing more videos of shoots and showing you some different stuff, maybe different features on how to do this and that. And a couple of reviews here and there. We got some new lenses in. We got some toys that we want to play with. So we might show you how all that comes about. Anyway, if you like this video, give us a like. Hit subscribe, that way you get informed of all the stuff that we put together. I say we because my significant other, Derica, she's part of this too. She's just not in this video. Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day.